Story 1. This story took place a long time ago. I was in charge of watching my cousin and his two friends while they slept over. My uncle was paying me $100 to watch them for the night. All I did was play video games with a bunch of 9-year-olds for most of the night. I thought it would be the easiest $100 I ever made, but things took a huge turn for the worse when I heard footsteps coming from upstairs. We were in the basement, still playing video games. One of the kids also heard the sounds. I counted 3 kids sitting on the couches, and neither my aunt nor uncle were supposed to be home that night. I swallowed my gum when I realized the basement door was wide open. I told them to stay there while I ran upstairs to shut the door. The door didn't have a lock from the inside, only the outside. I called to the kids to hide in the workout room. I shut the TV and all the lights, then followed the kids into the workout room. We listened in the dark as the footsteps approached the basement door, followed by the horrible sound of the door opening and heavy steps stomping down each stair one by one. One of my cousin's friends was crying. I had to tell them to shut the hell up. I leaned against the door with a chair, along with a bunch of barbell weights wedged against it. I listened as the door to the boiler room was opened and a few moments later closed. Screams of children filled the room as the doorknob to the workout room began to turn. I pushed the door with all my might to keep it shut. Whoever was on the other side quickly gave up, as we heard rushed footsteps going up the stairs. I heard the footsteps right above our heads, moving in the direction of the front door. This was before everybody had cell phones, so calling someone first wasn't an option. I scanned the whole house, finding that the front door had been left open, and all the bedrooms upstairs had been trashed. Nobody was in the house, so I called the kids up. A few things had been stolen, but as long as nobody was hurt, we were all happy. Story 2. I worked as a babysitter during my college years just to make some extra money without having to maintain a set work schedule. For the most part, I took care of this one family's 4-year-old boy a couple of times a week, as the parents would often have dinner events for work. The boy was quiet, but I appreciated that because he was easy to watch over. He didn't do much besides watch TV and play with toys, and he seemed to like me. This was my 6th time watching him. I had arrived at the house just before his parents left, and they explained that they would be back home around 11 p.m. tonight, and I needed to make sure he was in bed by 9. The first few hours went as usual. I watched TV with him and made him a small frozen pizza. After finishing his food, he told me he had to use the bathroom and left for a few minutes. When he returned, he asked me about the shuffling noises coming from the basement. I was confused and immediately turned off the TV. Sure enough, as soon as the TV was quiet, I could clearly hear something moving around down there. It was very faint though, and I couldn't tell what it was. Seeing that the boy was clearly scared, I assured him it would be okay and was probably just a small animal that had gotten in. I told him to wait upstairs while I went down to see what it was. By this point, the shuffling had already stopped. I'd never been in the basement of this house before, as it was unfinished and there was never any reason to go down there, so I was definitely being cautious. I opened the door and turned on the light by the stairs. Then I walked down quietly and turned the light on at the bottom of the stairs too, which lit up the whole room. It was a pretty big space, mostly filled with storage boxes. I walked around, checking behind a few boxes, but after not seeing or hearing anything else, I went back upstairs. The boy was waiting for me on the couch and shot up when he saw me. I told him everything was fine, nothing was down there, and gave him a big hug just to make him feel better. After a few minutes, we had already forgotten about the whole thing. A couple of hours later, it was getting close to 9 o'clock, and I started to get him ready for bed. We went upstairs to his room. I made sure he was ready, then said goodnight and went back downstairs. I sat on the couch for probably 30 to 40 minutes, just scrolling through my phone, before hearing shuffling from the basement again. But this time it was a lot louder. My heart stopped for a second as I listened. Then I heard the bedroom door open upstairs, and the boy called out my name. I told him to stay where he was and not to come down. I got up and made my way to the basement door. At this point, I was pretty terrified. I pulled out my phone and had it ready to call 911 as I opened the door as quietly as possible. The shuffling sounded like it was close to the bottom of the stairs now. I reached over and flipped on the lights. Immediately, I slammed the door shut and ran upstairs to get the boy, then went straight out the front door and called 911. I stood across the street from the house, looking at the windows as I waited for the cops to come. I also called the parents to let them know what had happened and to come home as soon as they could. When the police finally arrived, I told them what happened. As I turned on the lights by the stairs, I saw a half-naked man crouching down at the bottom while searching through a storage box. They carefully searched the home and found clear evidence of someone having lived in the basement recently, with piles of trash shoved in boxes, but they didn't find anyone. When the parents arrived, they thanked me for calling them and talked to the police about the situation. About an hour later, I was able to go home as they secured the house and filed the reports. I spent the next few days really shaken up and being pretty paranoid. For a couple of weeks, I kept in touch with the parents to see if there were any updates on the man, but nothing ever came up. Eventually, we lost touch, as I no longer wanted to babysit anymore. I think the most terrifying thing about it was that he never got caught, and he could be living in someone else's basement right now without them even knowing. Story 3. I would frequently babysit back between the ages of 15 and 18. I lived close to a relatively wealthy area where people were more generous in terms of pay. There was never a shortage of need for babysitters either, so I made a decent amount of money. I definitely had to take care of some strange kids, but this one takes the prize. Right from the moment I met Michael, he seemed really quiet and weird. He was 12 years old, which some might argue is more than old enough to be home alone, but maybe not overnight. They needed me to stay overnight. His parents told me he could be a bit strange sometimes and may need some extra attention. I didn't really need to do much, though. In the room where I would be sleeping was a huge toy closet, big enough to fit a large Lego play table with a bunch of Legos and other toys sitting on top of it. Michael was up there for most of his time, building with Legos and other toys. I didn't really spy on him too much. I just let him do his own thing. But I heard him constantly talking in there as if someone were with him, not play talking. I could only assume he had some kind of problems, and that's what his parents were hinting at. He came down eventually to eat some leftovers from the fridge, but then went right back up to his closet. It wasn't until I finally told him it was time to go to sleep that he left the closet. I just wanted to go to sleep myself. Sometime in the middle of the night, I woke up to sounds coming from the closet. Sounds of toys, like Legos. I called out to Michael to go to sleep. The sound stopped. The light wasn't on in the closet, so I was confused as to how the hell he could be playing in the dark. I went over to open the closet and turned the light on. Michael didn't seem to be in there. I dismissed the noises. I wasn't a paranoid person. I fell back asleep. I'd say an hour later I woke up to partial brightness in the room. The closet light was on, but the door was shut. I called Michael's name again. I was pissed now. I saw the outlines of feet at the bottom of the closet door, and then heard a little giggle, as if Michael were messing with me. I knew he was in there now. I marched over, threw open the door, and literally fell back in horror when nobody at all was in there. Where the two outlines of feet had been, there was nothing. Now, I felt a pain in my chest from the fear. I ran to Michael's room to find him asleep in his bed. I locked his door and laid down on his floor. Just being next to another person made me feel a little safer. I fell asleep on the floor, and when the parents returned the next day, I decided to keep quiet about what I had witnessed. I say what I witnessed because I know what happened. I got paid and left, and I never had to worry about it again. Of course, it still sends chills up my spine thinking about it, and I still have no idea what to believe. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And let me know if you have a scary true story you want to share. Let me know in the email down below. I am trying to reach 1K subscribers by the 1st of January 2025. So help out and tell your friends. Love you, Horror Mafia. Until next time, have a good one.